Okay, folks, this is the second in a series of videos I've been inspired to produce concerning the issues that face us. August 5th, 2009, my inspiration seems to be having a desired effect based on the responses to the video posting and the email video that I distributed. People are now talking about what's going on behind the issues, and that's really what I'm after. In other words, not so much the insurance issue itself, but what's happening behind that, what's driving that. And because of that, I want to talk today about how a bill is introduced and becomes law, because people obviously have either forgotten about this or never learned about it. So your senator or your representative writes the proposed law. This is given to their peers for them to read and think about. Well, meanwhile, a committee is selected to do the actual study on the feasibility and the implications and the repercussions and the costs and every little facet of this new proposed law, or as it is known at this point, the bill. The committee has only three choices. First, they could okay the bill as it is and send it back for the vote. Second, the committee could recommend or make changes and then send it back for the vote. Or third, they could table the bill, which means it goes nowhere, gets no vote, it's pretty much dead. If they okay it as it is, then it gets on to the calendar for the vote. Then, when it's voted on, which could be weeks, days, months, years later, it needs a majority vote to pass. If the bill is passed by even one vote, it then moves to the other house for the same kind of review. It's studied, committed, talked about, and everything, and then it needs another majority vote to pass that house. Then, when the bill is finally passed by both the Senate and the House, then it goes to the President of the United States to hopefully get signed into law. But he could veto it, which effectively says no, and pretty much kills it dead. Now, it can be resuscitated by a supermajority revote in both houses, but that's pretty rare. That means 2/3 of each house has to vote unanimously to overrule the presidential veto. If a president vetoes it, it usually means there's so much dissent amongst the ranks that they're not going to get together and create a 2/3 majority in both houses to overrule the president. So veto is usually final. Or the president can simply do nothing and let it sit for 10 days, in which case it becomes law anyway, but kind of under a presidential protest. Now, this is the president's way of saying, it's not that bad a law, but I don't agree with it. I'm going to let it pass, but I don't really want my name attached to it. Okay, these are the basic paths a bill can take when they're introduced and try to become law. Hopefully, you can see that our amazingly gifted forefathers of this great nation have crafted a finely balanced system of checks and balances intended to keep the power-hungry government in its place. Remember, when the Constitution was written, our forefathers had just gone through a terrible struggle to throw off the yoke of oppression from the King of England. So they designed a method which requires careful consideration of all potential laws and encourages open and honest debate on its merits or shortcomings, its costs, its benefits. Every facet of it is supposed to be considered and discussed and voted upon. This is necessary to ensure all represented interests are heard, and that when a law is implemented, it's as fair as possible because it has to govern the entire nation. Personally, I find it very scary that during some recent 2-year senatorial terms, there have been, by some counts, as many as 10,000 bills introduced in the House and the Senate for consideration. And by some counts, a recent average of more than 600 bills get passed in 2 years. By now, it's common knowledge that the Senate and the House of Representatives take one hell of a lot of time off every year. But for the sake of discussion, let's give them the advantage of working a truly mythical 365 days for each of these 2 years we're using as the example. That still works out to about 13.5 bills per day, every day, 365 days a year for 2 years, that they have to study and consider and debate and vote on. If they only took a very generous 1-month vacation per year, plus the typical weekends off, that ups the ante to about 21.5 bills a day. And we know they take even more time off than that. Please think about this, people. The people who we have selected and elected to govern us cannot possibly be reading and studying all of these potential laws we are subjected to. They have even publicly admitted it. And if they're not reading them, there could be anything written into these laws that are getting passed. Would you sign any contract without understanding all the details? Of course not. But these men and women that we elected are trying to vote on laws that govern us, but conveniently somehow don't apply to them. Just like health care. They were going to do the health care thing for us, but they get a separate, better plan. Some of them have even publicly stated the health care bill isn't even completely written yet, but they still have to hurry up and vote on it. Whatever your political choices are, whatever side you're on, whatever your affiliation is, you owe it to yourself, nobody else but yourself, to help restore this process by demanding that your government adhere to the powers we have granted and no more. We, the people, are faced with the prospect of becoming subjects of a ruling class once again. But this time the king's throne won't be overseas. It'll be in Washington, D.C.